channel. My name is Titus, and today I'm going to show you how to implement an M-PESA STK push with your Android app. And in this case, I'm using Java. So I'm going to take you through step by step. I'm not going to do a live coding because I've already made the code. Actually, that would take hours. So because of time, I already made the code, and I'm just going to take you through what you need to do to implement M-PESA STK push, especially C2B, that is customer to business, with your Android app. A few people have been requesting me to do a video concerning M-PESA STK push, and I hope you learn a lot from this video. Yeah, so that's it. I'm going to take you to a file that I prepared on the steps that you need to follow. So let me brush through. So these are the steps. First of all, you need to register a Safaricom developer account. I'm going to make this file available within the description section of this video. So just go to this link, follow this link, go to Safaricom developer account and create. So in this case, of course, I already have a Safaricom developer account, but for your case, if you don't have a Safaricom developer account, kindly go to this URL and create one. So once you do that, let me just log out and show you this. So once you come here, and if you don't have an account, just go to sign up, provide your details. It is free, and create an account. Once you do that, you can just log in. So for my case, I'm just going to log in. So once you log in, click on create new app. So you need to create a new app to integrate with your app. So you need to create a new app from the Safaricom developers account server side. So in my case, I already created an app, so I'm not going to do it again. But if you don't have one, just create one here. Give it any name you want. Select these modules. Maybe if you want to use Lipa na M-PESA, M-PESA Sandbox. So you need to check all this. And you also need to include an acceptable app name. Then click on create an app. I had already created a bunch of apps here. As you can see, there's Kenload V2, Ecomall, Betis Collection, and the rest. But the one that I'm going to use is Offensive Lab for today. So the most important thing that you need to get from here is the consumer key and consumer secret. We'll be using that to send requests to the API. So once you do that, you go back to your Android Studio and create. So the next step here, after creating a new app, you need to know how to get an auth token, which I'm going to show you how to do it. The token is required to send your API requests. If you never worked with an API before and it's your first time, I recommend you watch a video now to program an API so that you know how to send requests from a client side to the API. You'll know about authentications and tokens and the rest. So the next step is generating a response for the request body. Callback URL. So generating response for the request body. So here, generate callback URL for response body. So you go to this link. Again, I'm going to show you how to do this, but you can, let me just take a minute to show you this. So you follow this link, which is also going to be available in the description section of this video. So you can create a callback URL. So just click on create a request bin here. And this is the callback URL that you can use to get the response that is sent back from the Safaricom server side. So moving on, the next step is create the project. So go to Android Studio, create an empty project, create a layout. So that is design the interface. So for my case, I'm going to design an interface where you need to enter your phone number and the amount that you want to pay and click on a button to pay. So you need to design that interface. It's simple. It's just drag and drop when you're using Android Studio. I'm going to show you that in a few. Creating the model, you need to create a model where you set your auth token. The token that is the token that you're going to use to send requests to the API. And the next step, you need to create two classes within that model package, that is STK push and access token. Yeah. The next step is add consumer secret and consumer key. So the consumer secret that you get from your app. Okay, so if you come back to my apps here, okay, refresh this. Okay, consumer key and consumer secret. I'm going to show you how to do that. So the next step, after you set your consumer key, you need to call them from your build.gradle. That is the build.gradle for your app. Again, I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm just brushing through the steps so that when we start going through the code, I don't need to switch back and forth. Creating interceptor for your token. Interceptor is going to be used to to encode your passwords, your tokens before you send them to the API, so that if somebody was eavesdropping on your network, they'll not be able to receive the token in plain text or the password in plain text. That will be cause maybe security issues. So we are considering also security issues there. That is why we have the interceptor package, where we encode everything that we send across to the API. Across the network. Another thing you need to do is define, it's not necessarily a must that you should do this, but for my case, because I'm doing this for test purposes only, we have a class. You need to create a class called where you define your constants, just in case you need to add the credentials that you use to send the request, like the business shortcode, the password, the key, the timestamp, and the rest. So I'm coding all those stuff in my constants class. So this one you create at the root of your project. I'll show you how to do that also. So the next thing is you need to know how to handle API calls. So we are going to create an STK push service class, which is also going to work with a client class. So the STK push service is going to be an interface, and the client, the Daraja client, the Daraja app API client class here is going to implement that interface. So here, handling API calls, create a new package and name it services. So within the services package, create a Java class and name it STK push service. And again, in the same package, create a new Java class called Daraja API. You can name it whatever you want, so long as you know how to use it in your code. You don't need to use the same names. So we are going to use a dependency called retrofit and JSON. Remember, we have JSON and we also have JSON. So in this case, we are going to use JSON to handle our API calls, and another dependency called retrofit. And the next step is we need to handle the inputs from the user. You can never predict how the user is going to enter the phone number. For example, some users may start with +254. Others may start with 07, or maybe there are some funny numbers this day starting with 01. So we need to handle all that. Otherwise, we'll get an error from the API. So that is what we are going to do here with verifying phone number and timestamp. And of course, we are going to create a utils class for that. And okay, the next step, and this is the final step in your coding, then we'll test our app, is to code the logic in your main activity. Coding. Let's head back to our Android Studio and go through the code and see how this is implemented. So the first thing you need to do if you are creating a project for the first time, just go to, let me close this and show you how to do it. So we are going to start from scratch, from creating a project. So click on new project. and select empty activity, then click on next. And you also need to select this. So if you select minimum API, this is going to work from Android 5 onwards. It is not going to work on Android 4 or below. But you can decide to set that from here. But in this case, my Android Studio comes with default 5.0. That is the lollipop version. You can also decide to use legacy Android support libraries, which I'm not going to use. You can also decide which language you want to use, whether Java or Kotlin here. For my case, I'm going to use Java. And you click on finish. You can give your app a name or your project a name. So I'm not going to create a new project because I've already created one, which is M-PESA STK Push demo. I'm just going to open it. Now, the first thing that we need to do is create a package. So to create a package, just right click on your project name, go to new package, and give it a name. Just give it a name and press on enter, which I'm not going to do because I already created the package model. So here, this is where we are going to set our access token. So access token class, this is what we are doing. A serialized name access token. When you're sending a request, this is the name that is going to be sent, access token. That is the serialized name. Then expires in, that is the timestamp when your request is supposed. If your request should be, or your token should be expiring the next 3 seconds or 3 minutes. Yeah, so this is where we will specify that. So we are just setting the access token here. You can see this is a constructor with the same name as the class. So in our constructor, we are just initializing or instantiating the access token. So you can see here we're instantiating the access token. Then in STK push, this is where we are going to set our fields. The fields that you saw when we sent a request. Let me just show you that in a few. Yeah, so you can see this is the request body that we sent when we were simulating. So we have business shortcode, we have password, we have timestamp, we have transaction type, amount, which was 1, party A and phone number are the same thing. So let me just replace this with my phone number so that they're the same thing. So when you're sending a request, party A and phone number are the same thing. Party B, that is your business shortcode. Party B and business shortcode are the same thing also. And we have a callback URL, which I showed you how to create. So you need to replace this with a callback URL that we created. So this you can replace. So you can come here, copy this. So we'll use it later in our code. So let me just replace it here. So you can copy this to Notepad, maybe, so you can use it later. Then we have account reference. You can keep the here. You can change depending on the name. So maybe you can say okay, example business. So what I mean is account reference refers to the name of your business. Then payment transaction description. You can say maybe payment of package what, or maybe payment of goods, or maybe payment of shoes, whichever. So this is where you define your description. And I'm also going to show you step by step how to come up with a response body from the code. So let me head back to this. So you can see here within the STK push class, we are defining the fields. We have business shortcode here, we have password, we have, so the serializable name is the serializable name is what will appear on the response body, just like what I've just shown you. Callback URL, that is how it will appear. It's also string. Then we are also creating a constructor for it, where we are instantiating everything, as you can see here. So this is a common practice, especially when you're using Java. So if you are familiar with Java, or if you are a Java developer, you should be able to understand this part. Again, I'm going to include the link to this code on GitHub in the video description area. So don't need to worry about this. You just need to understand what is going through here, the logic, and you can follow along. You can follow the code later. And the next thing that we are going to do is to create an interceptor. Remember when I told you about sending requests which are encrypted? So when we be sending our credentials or our request to the API, we need to encrypt everything for security purposes. We cannot send a plain text token. We can also not send a plain text password. So we need to encrypt those things. So that is why we have an interceptor class where it intercepts the requests and encrypts before it finally submits to the API. We are sending this across a network to the Safaricom API servers. So we need to also consider security here. So an access token interceptor. So what I'm doing here, I'm just getting the I'm getting the keys. So you can see here, and I'm using this way I'm passing the consumer key and the consumer secret. Let me show you how we set this in our app, so that before I come back to this. So to set your consumer key, if I head back to Safaricom developer account, go back to apps, we have consumer key here, and we also have consumer secret. So to set them in your app, go to build.gradle file. So this is where I have mine. Just open it, and I had already set this. So you can see here M-PESA secrets. So you can give it any name you want. It doesn't necessarily have to be these ones. Just give it a name you want, so long as you are going to be consistent in your code. So I'm pasting my consumer key here and also my consumer secret here. So once you do this, you head back to your build.gradle for the app. So build.gradle, check this. It is marked module M-PESA STK push demo.app. This is what we need. Just open this. Then go to build types. Add this line. So let me comment here. Okay. Set M-PESA keys. So when you'll be following code later, this is what you need to add. You need to add this line to your build.gradle app level. So once you do this, by default, you can access this. You can access these fields from any part of your code, from any class of your code, so long as you set them here. So that is why when I come back to access token interceptor, I can be able to call this. I can be able to call these fields from build config. Remember, it is app. Called build.gradle. So to call them, you are going to use this. So first of all, I need to import build config. So up here, I'm importing base 64, which I'm using to encode my keys. Then I also need to import from com.example from my app here. I'm importing build config, and in this I have my keys in the build config. That is where I set them, like I have just shown you. So when you come here, just set them here, the keys. Then we get the keys. Once you get the keys, then we need to encode them. So here are the keys. So when you're sending the request, you pass it to a thread, or you can call it a chain of requests. So that is, just create a new thread for every request. So once the thread has been completed or has been executed successfully, it closes. If you need to send a new request, you just create a new thread. So that is why you are passing them to a chain. And here, before I send the request, I'm adding it. Before I add it to the header, you see here I'm encoding it to base 64, and I'm going to show you how encoding and decoding works just in a few. So I'm going to go to my browser. and show you how decoding and encoding work. So if I go, let me go to, okay, so yeah, so this is the right one. You can just Google this base64 encoder and decoder online. So let's say, for example, I want to encode, let me set a simple thing. Let's say I was communicating with somebody and I wanted to encrypt my messages so that whoever, if the phone maybe falls in the wrong hands, they'll not be able to read the message directly. They'll have to do some decoding to see the contents. So let's say, for example, I wanted to say, hey, I did not want somebody to know that I'm communicating with this person. So I want to encode my message. So just come back here. Come to head. Right. So just go to this site. It's base64encode.org. And once you do that, click on encode. And maybe, let me test with hey. Click on encode. You can also decide if you want to use UTF-8, ASCII, whichever, or CRLF. This is for Windows or for Linux. So in this case, I'm using the defaults. And you can see, hey, it's not hey anymore. It's just some code. So I can decide to send this code, copy it and send it to my client or whoever I was communicating to. And they'll just come and copy it and come and click on decode. So when I decode this again, click on decode. Okay, yeah. Click on decode. You can see my haze here. So that is how encoding and decoding work. So this is what I'm doing here. So to learn more about base64 encoding and decoding, you can do your own personal research, or maybe I'll make a new video concerning cryptography. So I'm encrypting my credentials here. So the next thing, we also have an auth interceptor. So once we encrypt our credentials, then even the response that is coming from the server, we also need to decode. Remember, when we are sending, we are encoding. And when the server is sending, the server is also encoding. So how do we know? How do we get the required response from the server? We also have to do what? We also have to decode the message that is coming from. So that is why we have auth interceptor. So this is where when we get the token from the server, it is coming as encrypted. So we need to decode that in auth interceptor. So that is what I'm also doing here. Yeah, that is what I'm doing here. So once we do that, we get the code and we can use it in our, we get the token and we can use it in our code. So next, what I'm going to show you, don't worry about this code. It's going to be available on GitHub, and you can, when you are implementing your own, you can always make a reference. So the next thing, I'm going to go to my services module. So in the services module, this is where I'm dealing with the API calls. So here, I have one class called Daraja API client, and I have another class called STK push service. This is an interface, and this interface is being implemented by Daraja API client class. So I'm going to start by opening the interface. So in the interface, I'm defining the post request URL and the get request URL. So the post request URL, this is where we are going to be posting our request from the client. Maybe you are paying, maybe you are requesting a token. So this is where you'll be sending your requests. STK push v1. I can show you this from the server. So if I open Daraja developer account, go to APIs and go to simulate. You can see we have HTTPS sandbox Safaricom. So this is the base URL. So if you are familiar with API coding or API development, you know that APIs, you must have a base URL somewhere. So because I don't want to repeat myself, I'm going to set this base URL in my constants. So the only thing I need to add is this. So that is why you see we have M-PESA STK push v1 process request for sending the post requests, but the base URL is defined in my constants. You can see here, if I go to my constants, constants here, I'm defining a base URL, and it is https safaricom.co. That is the base URL. So the other URLs that I'm including adds on top to this, the base URL. So if I come to SDK push service, so we have this. So if I add this to the base URL, that is what brings this. So this is the complete URL when I send a post request. It adds on top of the base URL. And get request, the same thing. Okay, so this is when I'm getting an access token and sending a push body. So in my Daraja API client class, this is where I've implemented the logic to send STK push. So the first thing I'm doing here, first of all, I'm initializing variables and they are private. So that means they can be accessed only within this class. So I'm going to check is get access token, whether it is true or false. I'm also going to check if I'm sending a request from a debug mode or a production mode. Then I'm initializing my retrofit dependency for handling API calls. And again, okay, my auth token, I'm also initializing this. So in case I send a request and get an auth token, I'm going to pass it to auth token. So that, and another thing I'm going to do is a login interceptor. So this one is for just to showing the, in case there is an error, I'm going to log it somewhere so that I am able to see when I'm debugging my app in case of any problem. So the first thing that I'm doing here, I'm checking whether I'm in debug mode or production mode. So if I'm in debug mode, I'm going to send test requests. If I'm in production mode, I'm going to send production requests. And in the next function, what I'm doing is set auth token. So this one I'm just using, once I get the auth token from the request, I just set the auth token to the head. That's when I'm now sending the request for the payment. And this next class, set get access token. So this is where I'm checking whether if I should you can see here I initialized this variable is get access token. Now, so this one, what I'm going to do is check if the moment I launch my app, this variable is going to be set to, this variable here is going to be set to true. So when I launch my app and I'm connected to the internet, then it's going to be true, showing, instructing this class that you should send a request to the API to get an access token. So the request is going to be sent if this value get access token is set to true. Otherwise, if it is false, no request will be sent to the server. Okay, so in OK HTTP client, so this is also another dependency that we add. So what we are doing here is we are checking the connection timeouts and also the connection duration that is required. So let's say maybe if I sent a request and maybe the request is hanging, when I set my timestamp or the required connection time to be 3 seconds or maybe 5 seconds, when the 5 seconds have elapsed, my connection is going to be disconnected automatically. So if I need to continue with the transaction, maybe I can send another request. So every request I send is being handled here. They expire or after some time, and this is what handles them. This is the code that handles the request, expiration time, timestamp, and the rest. So it returns that. So if the connection is succeeded, it returns a connection. But if the connection is hanging somewhere, then the time it has elapsed, the time that was assigned has elapsed, and then the connection is going to be broken or maybe disconnected. So in that case, it's going to return an exception. If it is true, it's going to return a connection. And here I'm using the retrofit dependency to make API calls. So you can see I'm setting the base URL that is I've just shown you here. I'm setting this in my constance. I'll come to this file and show you this and how to do this. So I'm using the base URL. Okay, so that is why if you check my imports here, you'll see that I'm importing base URL, I'm putting connection timeout, read timeout, and the rest of that. And I'm even importing, I'm also importing auth interceptor and access token interceptor. I believe I already explained what they do. So here, okay, so this is where I set my base URL. So what this class does is, okay, just check if my variables, like for here we are checking if debug, so that is send this request if I'm in debug mode, otherwise it will send a production request. So I'm also checking if I should get an access token, and also checking if token is if my token, if the server has returned a token or null here. Then if all these tests have been passed and that there is a token, get access token is set to true and the rest, and everything, every condition is satisfied, then what I'm going to do, I'm going to head to this class. This is the final class where we are sending the final request to the API. So public STK push service. So this is where I'm sending the request to the API. So you can see here, STK push M-PESA service. I'm going to show you this from the main activity code. So because this, we are going to call this, we are going to call an instance of this method to execute our request from the main activity. Fine. So this is where I'm sending the request. So in my constants, class, so this is where if you check this, the response here, this is an example of response that I sent. So if you check this, all these variables, there are some that I'm going to hard code here, like something to do with timestamp, connection timeout, read timeout, write timeout. So connection timeout, when the connection should be cut, read timeout, when the service should stop reading a value or a variable from the API side, write timeout when the client is allowed to write, and the base URL already explained this. Then business shortcode, that is your pay bill, and this is where now you go back and where you pasted your passkey, come and paste it here. Take note of this. Many people make mistakes here, and when you send the request, it won't work just because of this. So just get your passkey from here. Let me show you this again. When this is my app, so you can see when you scroll down, there is a passkey. Just copy this, come and paste it here, replace this here. And transaction type is customer pay bill online, and party B and business shortcode are the same thing. Callback URL, go back to where you had your callback URL, come and paste it here. Then if you go to utils class, and these ones you create at the root of your project. Create this. So meaning at the root of your project, right click, new Java class. So if I go to utils class, I'm handling timestamp. So this is the format that the timestamp should take: year, month, day, hours, minutes, seconds. Then sanitize number. This is where I'm handling how, or just reformatting the input from the customer or from the client, because you can never predict. So I'm checking if the phone number length is 11, so that means the customer started by entering 07. So what I'm going to do, if the phone number starts with 0, then I replace that 0 with 254, then return the phone number. But if it is 13, that it means the customer entered plus 2547 something. So what I'm going to do, get the first variable, that is, the first value, that is plus, and replace that value with null, so that it starts with this. So there's a universal format here. The number should start with 254. So whichever you use, if you start with 07, it will still be formatted to plus 254. And if you start with the plus 254, we will cut out that plus so that it goes back to 254. So return the phone number finally. And here, this is where we are generating the password. So to generate the password, and the password that we are using, if you go to this request, there's a passkey and there's a password. So let me simulate this again and show you. So you can see this is the password here. So if you can, for the part of the password, we cannot hard code this because the password changes every time you send a request, because every request, the timestamp when you are sending the request is included and used to come up with a password. So this one cannot be hard coded because it changes every day. You can see the timestamps here keeps changing. This is the timestamp. Every second it changes. So when we come to our code, how do we handle that? So here we are declaring this method where we have business shortcode we are combining with the passkey that you set here. This is the passkey. So we are combining it with the passkey and the timestamp, the timestamp that you define here. So the time that you are sending that request. I'm going to show you how to do this in the main activity. Then what we do, we return an encoded value to base 64. That is what we send to the server. We don't send the password in plain text. We encode it. So I'm going to head to my main activity where we are going to do the final code. So in my main activity, so what I'm doing here, first of all, you need all these imports, and when you'll be following along, you'll get this code. So import this from constants. I'm also importing passkey, party B, callback URL, and transaction type. I'm also importing progress dialog. So the progress dialog that shows maybe something like when you send a request, it's going to show you sent, please wait, something like that. And okay, so you'll deal with the imports. So you need to import STK push, access token, and the rest. Okay, so when I come inside my main activity, so I need to initialize a few things. First of all, I need to initialize and make it private. Initialize Daraja API client. That is our class that is handling this class here. That is handling API calls, and I'm initializing it here. I'm also initializing progress dialog, the dialog that shows that when you submit a message or click the submit button, it shows please wait, message sent, please wait, something like that. And I also need to reference my buttons from my main activity XML that I designed. Let me show you this. So I need this button. I need this button for where the customer is going to input their number and the amount, then the button. So I need to reference that within my main activity, because the main activity is what deals with displaying this form. So I'm going to show you how to call this form in your main activity. So these are the fields. So I'm using R. There is r.id.etAmount. So if you check this, this is the ID that I gave to this field. So you can see ET form, and we also have ET amount, and we also have BTN pay. So you can see at ID. So that is, you call them by ID. So you can see ET amount, ET form, BTN pay. So I'm initializing them, those fields. I'm initializing the button and pay field and the phone field. Then the onCreate, this one is like now an instantiator, or we can call it a constructor. Yeah, so whenever you run, whenever you click on you open your app, the first method that is run is this. So anything that is called within this method is going to be executed first before the rest of the code is executed. We are setting the context to this and this means we are referring to, is like referring to itself. So if you say maybe this dot class, we're referring to the same class. So M-PESA client also, we are also instantiating the Raja API client class here, and in this case, when you open your app, the debug is set to true. So that is why we have here M-PESA client.set is debug true. We have that method in our Daraja client. Let me close this. Okay, so if I come back to services, and call up, you can see here is debug, and we are passing in a boolean. It takes a boolean parameter and is debug here. So this is where we are setting it from the main activity. We are setting it to true. You can see we are setting it to true here. And we also need to set an event listener to our button. So this is where we're instantiating this mpay.set on click listener. This. Then we also, the first thing that we need to do after immediately you open your app, the first thing it's going to do is also send a get access token request. This is also a method that is, as you can see here. So this here is the method get access token. So it's going to send a request. So you can see M-PESA client.set get access token. It is set to true. So once this is set to true, this is in it's also there in Daraja client. Maybe just show you. Set get access token, which also takes a boolean value. When it is set to true, it's going to send a request to get an access token, and you can see it is returning access token. Return this. Going back to so here, after you get the access token, the next step is to perform STK push, and you can see our progress bar is showing. So once you send a request, it's going to show this progress bar processing your request. Please wait. And the body, the response body, this is how we make the response body. So this is what we are building here. So the response body here, you can see we have business shortcode, we have password timestamp, and we are calling all that from utils and from the constants that I defined. So business shortcode, we have business shortcode passkey here. This one is for generating the password. We need business shortcode, passkey, and timestamp, and that is there in utils. This is what we defined here: business shortcode, passkey, timestamp. So we are passing them we combine the two to get a password for sending a request. Then we have transaction type, which is there in constants, party B, callback URL, and account reference, which is also there. You can give the name of your business here. And transaction description is testing. Of course, this is a test. Then after that, we set get access token to false. Then after doing that, then we send a request to our API and wait for. So if there is a response, you'll receive a message, maybe telling that you've paid so and so to whichever account. It will come to your phone number, of course. So this is how you do an STK push. Let me show you a screen, sample screen when I run the app. So once you are through with the code, what you need to do is you can click on this build and build your. So once you build, so let me just click on this, though it's going to take some time. So let me build. So show you this. Let me open this console. Yeah, so once you build, it's going to show this. So if you have no errors, it's going to be successful. So once you build, just come here and click on build, this one, and go to, so now in this case I need to generate an APK bundle, or an APK file that I can install on my Android phone and test. So if you just need to install, if you just need to create an APK which is in debug mode just for testing, just go to this directly, build bundles, stop APKs, and choose if you want build bundles or build APK. In my case, I need to build an APK which I can install in my phone, so I am going to choose this and I'll click on that. So it's going to do its stuff here, and my computer is a bit fast. You can see it took a few seconds, and it says here APK generated successfully for one module. You can locate it, and here is the app, APK appdebug.apk. You can just copy this to your phone and install and test. I'm going to show you my screen when I test. Another thing that you can do, if you need to build an app that you can upload to your Play console or to Play Store, then you can come to generate signed bundle here. Then you select if you want this, or if you want to generate an APK. In my case, I'm going to use this as for demo, but I'm not going to generate one. Then if you have a key, it's called a store key or a key store. So if you have a key store, then you can provide the URL where it is stored. But if you don't have, you need to create a new one. If you don't know what a key store is, then maybe you need to watch my next tutorial and show you how to create a signed APK which you can upload to your Google Play Console account. So if you don't have a key store, just create a new one. So you need to fill all these fields, then click OK. Once you do that, you can come and specify the password and everything, then click on next. But in my case, I'm not going to do that. But in case you want to do that, create a signed APK, you need to follow the steps to the end. So maybe this one I'll do in my next video. So right now I'm just going to show you my screen, and let's test how this works. So I'm going to copy this. Okay, so this is my screen, and you can see I enter my number here, the amount is 1, send a request, and there is a pop-up. You enter my name and send, wait for a reply. And so if I go to my messages, you can see I have one message from M-PESA. The request was successful. You see, and it says Taraja sandbox for account offensive lab. So that is it. This was a long video. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned a lot from this. So if you're looking to integrate your M-PESA STK push with your app, I hope this video is going to help you a lot to that. Yeah, so if you like this video, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for next videos. Thank you for watching.